right, I'm the winningest tournament player of all time. I've won over 100 championships in straight pool, 9-ball, 8-ball. I've won big one-pocket tournaments. I'm also the youngest male in the Hall of Fame, Billiards Hall of Fame. And I was technical advisor on the movie The Color of Money, starring Paul Newman and Tom Cruise. I'm also the only world champion pool player for a period of like 12 years that made custom pool cues, something I really enjoyed.
During this episode of On the Move with Eddie P, I'm going to fulfill a promise to all of you. Not only are we going to be visiting with one of the, if not the greatest pool player ever in the history of the game, we're also going to be visiting with the only world champion pool player to also make world-class pool cues. None other than Mike Sigel, a.k.a. Captain Hook, sitting right here with us at Crossroad Cues. How you doing, Mike?
Good. You should be in the boxing here where the guy makes the announcement. I thought I had a big voice.
Well, you do have a big voice, Mike, and you got a big personality, and I want to let you know we appreciate you making time out of your busy schedule to come here, to visit with us, to work with me on my game, and to record this amazing interview. You know, Mike, this is an opportunity for us to really go behind the scenes and take a journey with you all the way from the beginning. I know there's so many people that have followed you and your career for so many years. Mike, where did it all start at?
Well, let's see. My family, I have two brothers, an older by 3 years and a younger by 3 years. And my older brother was hanging around a pool room. He was like 16. I was like 13. And he liked playing pool. So my father sold sporting goods. And for his birthday, my older brother, he eventually got a 3.5 by 7 pool table that they put in the living room at first, because you needed 3 or 4 guys to put it in the basement to carry it. So it's like one of those little honeycomb beds, In fact, they got rid of that table. I should have put it in an archive or something. But anyway, the table was sitting in the living room. So the table was in between the couch that I would sit on and the TV going to school. So one day there was a cue or two on the table. I walked over, picked a cue up, started playing pool, and I knew that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I had a gift for it. Everything looked easy. I started making shots instantly. And in 2 or 3 months, my brother, who had been playing for a while and all that, nobody could touch me. And that's how it started.
I like what you said. You used the word gift. And as we've been spending some time together over the last couple of days, you, as much as you've accomplished in this sport and as iconic as you are, you're humble enough to recognize the fact that you were given a gift. Make no bones about it. And that gift obviously had to be cultivated. I wanted to ask you, what players had the greatest influence on your game in the beginning and then throughout your game?
Well, that was very simple. It just turns out that we're in Rochester, New York, where I was born. First, Larry Hubbard, who was, he's the half APA owner. He just passed away years ago. Mm-hmm. He was a great player, okay? And he took me on the road. We'll talk about that later on. And I kind of learned, things from him. We played straight pool 90% in those days. 9-ball was not even out there. Mostly it was straight pool. But then Irving Crane, who is one of the greatest straight pool players ever, in my opinion, the best, because he won a world title in his 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, okay? The Deacon, he was a real, he had a great personality. He looked like kind of like a Marcus Welby type guy. But anyway, after watching him play, I'm like 16, 17, I'm really not missing too much, but I didn't understand the positioning and the finesse of the game, the patterns. After watching Crane, it was unbelievable. He just run hundreds. It looked like the easiest game in the world. So I started watching. I would sit at his table and watch him. And eventually I played with him down the road. And that was probably the two biggest influences on my game, Larry took me on the road. I was like 17, playing, gambling, whatever. And then Crane, I learned more, with Larry, it was more like the gambling and so on and so forth. Then Irv, it was more how to play the game the right way,
So he did, pour into the fundamentals of your game and had influence on the way your playing style?
Who?
Irving Crane.
Well, no one. When I picked up a cue, my form has never changed.
Okay.
Okay. So when I picked up a cue, I just naturally whatever. And I'm right-handed, but I play pool left-handed. Like Phil Mickelson is right-handed. He plays golf left-handed. I didn't even know I played left-handed for like 3 or 4 months. My brother says, you play left-handed. I go, I do. I didn't even, it felt so natural to me, And my form has never changed. From day one, when I picked up a cue, it's too bad they didn't have any footage or filming. Today, everybody's got a cell phone, all that. In my days, the other thing I'll interject really quick. People have seen me naturally on YouTube, TV, the whole thing, okay? Most people have heard of me or whatever. But the sick part to me is the best pool probably I ever played in my entire lifetime, no one ever got to see. That was 17 to about 33. Those years have never been filmed. That's gone. It's no more. Now, even though I played in the 80s, people saw me win. That was like more at the end of my career rather than, when you're young, you're hungry. It's all new. It's all exciting. Van Boning still plays every day, all that. As you get older. But in those years, it's too bad that people didn't get to see. There's no footage of those years.
Now, where was the shift where you went from playing a lot of straight pool
Right.
and you began to play the 9-ball? And then the other thing I kind of wanted to ask you in the same vein is one of the things that people have always said about you is that, and it's a known fact, of course, with the tournament wins that we'll get into later and whatnot, that one of the things you excel at the most is performing under pressure, right? So
Yeah.
when did you start playing the 9-ball, and then were you able to perform under pressure in general just right out of the gate, or is that something that took a lot of work?
Yeah, I mean, the 9-ball, believe it or not, we used to do the shows like on Wide World of Sports. A lot of people, with Howard Cosell, Moscone Fats. I did all those shows. When they first put pool on TV, it was straight pool. People just didn't understand if the guy had a ball hanging near the pocket, but he shot something else. Why didn't he take that easy shot, right? So we decided, we started getting more and more on TV. ESPN came around, all that. 9-ball seemed like an easier game for people to understand. It was more exciting. 9 on the break, combinations, faster pace for Americans. That was where the transition went. Now, here's the other thing people don't know. When we first started playing 9-ball in tournaments, we played push-out every shot.
Could you explain that to us?
Okay, so what that means is, now they do it in the opening shot of the game. So if I'm playing you 9-ball, let's say I break, I don't make a shot. You do not have a shot at the 1. You're blocked. You can push the cue ball with your cue in a position, and then I have the option of either shooting that situation or passing it to you. Now, today, they do that on the opening shot of the game because there's so much luck in pool. But when we played in tournaments, you could do that every shot.
So you're pushing a guy into a situation where you think maybe, let's say...
I can make it, he can't.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, but here's the other thing. There's so much luck in 9-ball. Let's say you and I are playing. You miss. Notice I said you miss, not me. You miss a shot, and I'm stuck behind a ball. I can push out instead of trying to luckily hit it. That gives a huge advantage to the better player because now you cannot get lucky anymore. Okay, so when we pushed out, you didn't push out for a safety. You always pushed out for a shot. There's no sense in playing a safe because I can just push out. So you would always push out for a tough shot, or I would. I figure to make it more than you. Plus, you can't get lucky and stick me unintentionally behind a ball.
Gotcha.
See, but then, the weaker players didn't like that because now they're the ones that put up all the entry.
So you were 13 years old, I believe I heard before, when you began to play. Is that right? 13? From 13, let's say, to 14, 15, 16, at what point did people, or yourself, or everybody, I should say, when did people realize, hey, there's something special here? This is not just a normal guy. Or I should say, when were you able to start beating good players?
Well, here's the thing, because when I was 13, my parents had a table, and one of my relatives had a table. So I'm not, in those days you had to be 16 to go into the pool room. So when I turned 15, I said I was 16, and I started playing in the pool room. People right away saw this guy will be a world champion type player. You could see it instantly. Just like any other, Earl, all those guys have that gift. Tiger Woods I remember seeing him, who lived right near me. I used to see him all the time in Orlando, and he loved pool, by the way. I saw him on the Johnny Carson show. He was like 3-4 years old, and he goes, "I'm going to be the greatest golfer that ever lived." I remember seeing that. So at 11 or 12 or 13, I think somewhere in there, Tiger Woods was already playing scratch golf, where, I'm an avid golfer. 99% of people have never played par golf on a golf course, even from the short tees.
He accomplished something as a teenager that most people couldn't dream of accomplishing.
But he had the gift. Then you say you practice and all that. Practicing I couldn't get enough of it. I played 8 hours a day. It's not work. Something you love. I couldn't wait. I would go to school. I graduated high school. After school, they had a bus. I got out at 2:50 in the afternoon, and at 3:10, I'd be in the pool room. I'd walk downstairs, start playing. Then my parents would pick me up, or someone would take me home 9, 10, 11 at night. On the weekends, they open at 12, closed at 12. I was in there. I used to brush tables to play free in the pool room. That was my first job. It's probably my only job.
You had to earn your keep, right?
Yeah.
Now, I got to ask you this. You're showing great promise. You're going to the pool rooms. You're playing. People can see you've got the gift. Were your parents very supportive? Because you seem like you come from a good family background, to say the least. You're a smart guy. You're very educated. You can tell you come from a good upbringing. What was their mindset about you being a pro pool player?
Well, at first they didn't think about it because, even today, a professional pool player, except a few handful of guys, like it was when I was playing, it's tough to make a living.
Yeah.
Because the sponsors, it's just the way it is. It's not golf or tennis. However, I didn't really know. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I never, at that age, I'm not thinking of my future, what I'm going to do. I was making money, gambling, playing. They had some little tournaments, and I was living with my parents until I was 23. So,
But these people, like your friends that are delivering newspapers or working at the candy store.
I did that too, by the way.
Right, but you're coming home with pockets full of money, right?
I bought my mother a chandelier.
I knew it.
In the house. Oh, yeah. No, when I went to high school, I always had a wad of money.
Here it comes.
So, and, I was like a wimp in school. I stayed to myself. I didn't do much. And, lunch, I think, was like 25 cents. I have like, 4,000 on me. Oh, here you go. Here's some money, $1, this, that. I'll tell you a real quick story. When I went, here's the other thing. We didn't get into this. Larry took me on the road when I was about 17. Mm-hmm. I was playing so good then. It was hard for anybody to beat me. We go on the road, but then all of a sudden, the mob guys used to hang around in my pool room. The Gambino family, upstate New York, was a big thing. They would all congregate in the pool room. That was like the hangout, the wise guys, just like Goodfellas or The Godfather. So they started taking me on the road. They kind of, Larry went to the bathroom one time, and one or two of the guys followed him in the pool room. And the other guy kind of stood by the door, and then Larry came out. And next thing you know, I'd ask him, when are we, going on the road so I can make some money? He kept making excuses. Then these two mob guys started to take me on the road. So we went to Detroit, which is near here, this place, Rack and Cue. Anyway, I went in there and I won. You couldn't get in there. It was all like mob guys, unfortunately, drug guys, all this. A lot of money in there. So I won $10,000. Now, this is 71-ish or 70.
Mike, that's a boatload of money.
Well, we split it 3 ways. So they each got $3,300. I got 30. When I came back they would pick me up Friday after school in a limousine. Then we go to Detroit, and I come back because in Detroit you'd gamble 1, 2 in the morning until 8 in the morning, right? So at about 5 in the morning, we drove. They dropped me off back at school. And my first class, my school started at 9 a.m. So we'd leave Detroit maybe 4 in the morning. So when I got there, so the gym teacher says, you got any valuables or rings or watches you want to leave with me when we go to the gym stuff? So I reach out a wad. I go, here you go. So I had more. I had like $4,000. That was like a half a year's salary.
No, wait a minute. Just to clarify for everybody here, A brand new Cadillac couldn't have cost that much, right? Or something.
No, they were a brand new Cadillac in those days was like 7,000.
Okay, so I'm close.
Yeah.
I'm half
Yeah,
close,
there you
right? So you had a half a Cadillac in your
Yeah,
pocket.
so I said, "Here you go," and then he after the class where he goes, "It's a half a year's salary for me." I think he made like 8,000-9,000 a year in those days.
So you're about 17 years old, and that's kind of what I wanted to jump into now. Larry takes you from Rochester, New York, and you already said you were in Detroit. You start making your way through the country. And
Yeah.
back in those days, of course, no internet, no streams, no media, no nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah,
You're a complete unknown.
yeah, nobody knows me.
And,
yeah.
and you're a kid. You had to look really young.
I weighed about 80 pounds.
Dripping wet, right?
Yeah, right.
So, for instance, would you guys start by canvassing different bars, pool rooms in New York, and then you made your way out, or would you go, for instance, and pick a mark? Like, hey, I heard about a guy in Detroit. I heard a guy in Pennsylvania.
Both. We did both. Larry, after a while, the road guys, so a lot of road guys came through Rochester, believe it or not.
And they got trapped by you.
Oh, they got destroyed. Bob Osborne, a funny story, because I went on the road with him years later. So he was in Dayton, Ohio, where they used to have the World Nineball, right? So Bob told me this later, right? So they, because road players would crisscross the country. So you're heading east, they're heading west. They go, hey, if you're in New York, area, go to that pool room. That kid gambles real high. So when other players like Billy Johnson, Wade Crane, other guys said, hey, I heard there's some kid that gambles real high in upstate New York. Bob looked at him and said, if I were you, I'd put an X on the map. You don't want to fool with that.
Beeline through New York, you better go a different way.
So we would go on the road. You'd play 10 or 20 a game nineball. We usually started going either to Ohio or the South towards the Carolinas and head some direction. And I would play 10, 20 a game till my arms fell off. Then we build up a big bankroll. And then once in a while, I would go to a player's hometown and then real gamble. You know what I mean? So
from 17 to, let's say, around 2021, you had to see a big jump in the progression of your game, obviously.
Oh, yeah. No, my game improved. It's funny because when I went on the road, I rarely missed. You play, you're on the road a month. It would be in the summer because I'm off of school. I was still going to high school. So I would go on the road, play, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, 7 days a week, and would never miss a ball.
I got to ask you to share a story with the followers that we talked about earlier about the guy you beat down in Mexico.
Canelo.
That was a world-class bar table player in that day that was basically beating everybody, right?
Might have been the best bar table player that I don't know. But, bar table, let's be, it's 7 foot. I hear these guys, how good they play in a bar table. Well, it's a bar table. So, you figured everybody figures play pretty good on a bar table, right? And don't forget, you're on the road every day playing. That's all I'm thinking about is pool. Like Van Boning practices every day, plays. I'm out. I'm not a practicer. I would practice very little before an event. Then my game would start going up until I reached the finals, was the pinnacle of my thing. Instead of getting in dead stroke, because I struggled, everybody knew the easiest way to beat me was my first or second match in a tournament. Because I struggled. But as I won every match, my game kept going up and up and up. So anyway, I was in Dayton, Ohio. Let's see, it's 1976. I was 23. And these two Mexican mobbish guys come up to me and they say, hey, you got to come to Mexico and play. There's a lot of guys there. They're suckers and this and that. Now, this Canelo guy was hanging around there. I heard stories. He gave Ronnie Allen, these are all guys in their prime. Ronnie Allen, Buddy Hall, Christopher, I think Laurie John Jones's husband, Sammy Jones at that time, Jimmy Mattia, Pittsburgh John, everybody went down to gamble. This guy gambled high. He had a big drug dealer as a backer. He gave everyone the 8 and robbed them. Okay, just robbed them on a bar. Buddy Hall gave him the 8, robbed them. Okay, so they say, come on down to Mexico. So actually, me and Jim Rempe and these two guys, we stayed near Brownsville. So every day we'd go over the border into Mexico. And when we crossed the border, they just look, talk something, and go. You know what I mean? That's how easy it was to go back and forth. So I go in there.
It's been that way lately too, Mike.
Yeah, well,
hey, Mike,
it's a little
that's a whole nother subject. Hey,
Yeah.
as they say in New York, forget about it, right?
So we go there and we go across the border. So I'm playing with a house cue and I start gambling with. They take us into some bar. I start playing guys 50, 100, 200, 300 a game.
In Mexico.
Can't play at all.
And you're how old about?
I was 23 exactly. I was 1976. And I'm playing with a house cue, and I can't believe these guys just keep playing. So we get about 8,000 winner playing these guys. Sure enough, Canelo comes in, right? So he walks in. Now, they thought I was an idiot playing with a house cue. I never played safe or any of that. If I had a funny situation, I just ride the balls, hit them real hard, and something would luckily go in.
Yeah.
Right? So Canelo, we play, it was actually, now I remember, we played 7 ahead for 5,000. Now we're like 8,000 winner. 7 ahead for 5, he gives me the 8, right? I get 5 ahead real fast, going to 7. So on the 6th game, I have an easy safety on like the 1 or 2. Hit and just stick on a ball. When I did that, he starts screaming in Mexican like he didn't think I would play a safety. So anyway, I beat him, right? So I won that game. Then I think I broke him, ran out the next game. So then he wanted to play in his other pool room. This time we're playing even. So we play. Now I have my own cue. He knows I'm a player.
So you broke the cue out after you guys started betting some pretty good money.
The next day he goes, because that's all he had was 5,000. He goes, come to my pool room tomorrow and we'll play higher. I said, so next day we go in there.
Yeah.
We play 10 ahead, which I didn't like, for 10,000. 10 ahead we each put up 10,000. We play 10, 12 hours, break even. I was with Rempe, right? Go back to the room, eat. Next day we come in. We started playing about 9, 10 at night until about maybe 8 in the morning. Everybody would leave the bar and then we'd gamble, right? Next day I played them 10, 12 hours. Never made a mistake. And I broke even. Third day I go in. I'm playing him. After about 10 hours goes by, I looked at Rempe and I made a comment that he overheard. I said, this is ridiculous. It's like playing a mirror. I go, this guy never makes a mistake. And the very next game he makes a mistake, it was all over. I rolled right over him. So we beat him 2 sets for 20,000. We won 20, plus we're like 12. We're like 30 plus thousand winner. I'm feeling pretty good, 1976. The next day we go in, the guy wants to play for 25,000 now, 10 ahead. So I told Rempe, I go, we're going to win like 100,000. Maybe, you hear these stories, guys win, 500,000. It's all stories. Let's put it that way. So when we go in there, we get up there and I see cop cars all over the place. And what happened was the guy that was the backer, the drug dealer that owned the bar, some guy came in that was fooling around with this guy's wife, supposedly, and he pulled out a gun and started shooting. Then the cops heard there was some big gambling going on. So we hung around a couple days but saw no good, and then we left town. That was it. It was over. And he was never the same, that guy. Then people started beating him. He was like unbeatable. This guy, Canelo, like I said, it took 3 days. I played perfect. Never made a mistake.
Now, during that session, as you think back on it, what would you say were the most amount of racks like he would put on you or you'd put on him?
6, 7 racks were common. 5, 6, 7 racks of he'd be 5 ahead. Next time I'd be 3 ahead. It was like going like that. It was unbelievable.
And just to clarify for people that don't understand what ahead means compared to a race where if you're, let's say for instance, you're racing at 10, right?
Right.
When you're playing ahead, if your opponent gets 5 games up on you, right? You got to win 5 games back just to get to 0, and then you got to win 10 to get to 10.
Right.
And a headset is the marathon of pool matches.
Yeah, I always was, the same thing happened with Earl Strickland, I'll tell you that story. But I always liked playing races to 11 because I know my game under pressure holds up when the score gets 8-8, 9-9, 10-10, going to 11. Plus, you can win by 1 or 2 games. Let's say I win 11-10 or 11-9. They're going to keep playing. Playing the ahead thing is more like that's more like an endurance contest. That's good for Keith McCready. 4 6-packs and whatever else, and next thing you know, he's playing. You know what I mean? But out of the gate, he hasn't played good.
Now, you mentioned you were with Jim Rempe, of course, Larry Hubbard. because of the track record that you were developing that early in your game, when you guys would go into these situations like with Canelo or all these different people, when you would go in and you'd bump into that other good player, was there ever a doubt that you could beat the guy, or did you always feel like no matter what, you could beat anybody?
Yeah, I didn't think anybody could beat me. I mean, I just didn't make any mistakes. I had a huge break. The difference when I played was my break was there was only 2 or 3 guys that could break like the way I broke. So after I retired, I would write articles for the Billiard Digest, and I would keep saying the most important thing in 9-ball is the break. A lot of people just didn't think of it as, to me, that's like a 350-yard drive. If you can break good, you control the match. You make a ball on the break, either A, you can run out, you can make a combination on the 9, you can play a safety and hook them real good and control the match. You have to have a good break to do that. So today, everybody breaks good because they realize that's in my opinion, that's 80% of the game.
Okay,
right?
so in your prime, the 5 greatest breakers, in your opinion, let me ask you this. I would humbly say Billy Johnson, Wade Crane, right? Of course,
Nick Varner.
Okay, Varner.
Kim Davenport had a big break. Who else?
Little David.
Well, he broke hard, but he didn't control the cue ball. Mm-hmm. Jerry Brock. I played this guy. He had a huge break and controlled the cue ball. The idea in the break is, we used to break out in the middle of the table and play position for the 1. So if I broke from, let's say, the left side of the spot, a ball would go in, not the 1. You don't want to make the 1. You want to make another ball, and the 1 would drift up towards the corner up table. Cue ball in the center of the table. You get a shot, run them out. Today, they play this cut break. So basically, whoever wins the tournament was the luckiest guy. Because he gets shots at the 2 more than anybody else. That's what I see.
Yeah, what I've noticed too, and I've heard people talk about this before, you are one person that pretty much always breaks with a closed bridge on the table in comparison to guys like Earl or different guys that break off the side rail.
Yeah, Earl brought that. I never broke good from the side rail. Never. I hit him okay, but not like I did in the middle of the table.
Now, is it true that in competition, let's say like in the U.S. Open or in a big tournament, if, let's say, I'm your opponent or your opponent is breaking really well from a certain part of the table, do you follow suit with each other?
Of course.
You do.
Well, here's the other thing. If you have, let's say, 8 tables in a tournament room, they're all lined up. Every table has a different characteristic because some corner tables have more air going around them. You might be under an air conditioning vent, all these factors. So when I would go to a strange table, they normally put me on the center table. Well, actually, the corner table. I was always on, because people could watch me around the table on each side, right? So I would go up to a table if I didn't know what was going on, a new table. I would look for the break spots. You see these white marks on one side of the table or the other. And then I would say, well, it's probably got to be a good spot because there's more marks. And then I would start breaking from there. So you have to shift your break around. Plus, you know what I mean? So if I hit him really good, didn't make a ball, I would instantly move to a different location. And if I found a location I made balls, I would stay there. It's like until the guy adjusted the rack, which happens.
I remember seeing all the different pictures. And, of course, I've seen it, on TV and on ESPN growing up watching your matches. But I've seen so many pictures of you with your cue bent so far. So I have to ask you, how many cues, or shafts have you broken over the years? 2. In open competition?
Yeah.
You just broke the shaft right there.
Shaft shattered right in front of me.
So what was it just because you were putting so much power on it that you'd bend your cue and then lean into it kind of thing?
When I broke, I'd keep my bridge hand low near the table. My follow through was more up in the air, where a lot of guys follow through more forward.
Yeah.
It was kind of forward, but I would lift up, okay? Now, over the years, I tried to change that because when you lift up too much, the cue ball jumps. So when you hit the 1, you're not hitting the 1 flush. You're hitting above the 1, maybe ½ inch. So you're not getting the really full power. But it worked for me, so that's what I did.
Yeah. I want to get into, in just a moment, some of your tournament wins and how the Pro Tour came together. But I have to ask you, if you could give us a couple of scenarios of where when you're on the road before we shift gears out of being on the road with Larry, were there ever any situations that were what you consider to be like dangerous, or you're a young guy, you're taking people's money, you're going in these places? Did you ever have any close encounters?
One time, but I wasn't with Larry. I was with that Bob Osborne.
Okay.
We got held up.
By gunpoint?
Yeah, in a bar. Yeah, we came in, the parking lot, pulled over, and guy came up to the car from nowhere, had a gun, and robbed us for like $3,000.
Was this after you robbed everybody on the pool
Yeah,
table?
but we still stayed there because I was winning so much. That was money that we were like, 5,000-8,000 winner, wherever it was. I wouldn't bring all the money. We go to a bank, get some kind of either a check or a traveler's check. I wouldn't bring all the cash in, just
So you had to pay a street tax to the guy. So here you are, you're in there, you're robbing everybody on the pool table. He robs you in the parking lot, but you look at it like the cost of doing business, right?
There you go. Yeah, that's the only time anything like that ever happened.